Someone asked how to sculpt the muscle cables on Infinity Heavy Infantry. So here is my attempt at an explanation of how to do that. First, we'll set out what we're trying to achieve. The way that it works for several of the factions in the game is that they put out cabling that follows the pattern of where human musculature would attach to the skeleton. So you end up with muscles over the deltoids, biceps, triceps, the bit, I don't know what these are called. So you set those out first, then you divide them up. So like this part up here would probably have been divided into more of them. I just only felt like drawing that many of them. But use around how many they would typically break like an arm and these parts into. And I'll show you on a model in a second. So you would break it up into a bunch of pieces, and then there's texturing over it. So the texturing is, I think, what the person was asking about. So we're going to start with pano here. There's like this sort of like crosshatch pattern that goes over each of the tubes. That is actually going to be harder. There's an easier one that you can get away with most of the time, and that's basically just to put the lines straight across. Most people will not notice the difference. They just see, you know, some detail, and so that you can get away with most of the time. So this is a random Magister Knight that I had in my extras box. I've wired him up so that he has arms. So, okay, step one is you need to use whatever tools you have to render out the distinct muscles to pull them apart from each other. And also just going to say, I'm going to be emphasizing speed on this demonstration because I tend to make very long videos, and I am going to try to make this one really quickly. So first we're going to cut in with a tool. So you can do everything I'm about to show you with just a knife if that's all you have. I am going to also be using a sculpting tool that looks like this, as well as a clay shaper, a silicone soft tool. This one is just used to get nice surface areas. So you first need to cut the lines between all of the muscles. So here I'm cutting the line under the deltoid. If you are not intimately familiar with human musculature, you can totally find a musculature reference online, and that will tell you where the different muscle groups go. You cut out the lines, and you end up with that. Okay, so next, each of the muscle groups you're going to break into multiple cables. So to do that, you're just going to take, so I like a flat sculpting tool for this. I'm going to go here, and you're going to basically, you're going to follow along the flow of the muscle, and you're going to divide it into pieces. So I find that it's helpful, like you cut it in half, and then you cut the remaining area in half. And so like, let's say here I want 3. So 1, I'm just sort of like pressing in with the edge of my tool. Again, because I'm going quickly, I only got 2 of them on this part, so whatever, that's all I'm going to end up with. Again, I would go a lot slower and do a lot better job if I was not doing a demonstration. So I'm just going to go along and speed through the rest. Okay, so I have used a metal tool to divide the arm up into different cables. Now, if you have it available, I would really recommend using a silicone clay shaper tool to clean up all of these lines, because we're going to be poking them a lot more, and we're going to be, when we add the texture, it's really going to like damage the smoothness of this. So the smoother you can make it at this stage, the better. Couple things that you're trying to keep in mind is that you do, so like here you can see that I've got lines that just sort of like go straight down the deltoid. You don't want that. You actually want these converging down this way. So you're going to want to go in during your cleanup. I mean, obviously don't make the mistake in the first place, but if you do make mistakes like that, you want to use your tools during the cleanup to pull everything in toward the terminal point of each muscle group. And again, a muscular reference that shows you where the different muscles narrow in and attach to the bone is going to give you a good reference of where you want to point things toward. So again, I'm going to quickly clean this up, and then we'll get to what I'm pretty sure is the core of what the person was asking about, which is how to do the detailing. So. Okay, So I have finished cleaning this up, not perfectly. If this was a real model I was doing, I would spend a lot more time on this, but this is just enough to demonstrate what I'm doing. So you want distinct tubes, you want the lines to converge on the attachment point, and where the muscle group gets fat, you want your individual tubes to also get fat. The part that I think the person was asking about now is how do you do the texture lines? So we are going to look at Pano, and I'm going to show you how to do different kinds of lines depending on how much work you want to put into this. First, I'm going to show you how to do it correctly. Doing it correctly is, in my opinion, more difficult and will end up looking messier unless you put a lot of work into cleaning it up. However, it is more accurate, and especially if you're doing larger areas, like if you actually are doing biceps and deltoids, and also if you're doing a butt, those are very large areas where you would generally put thicker tubes, and so it will be more visible in those areas if you don't do this kind of texture. Again, like typically I don't bother. Typically I just do the fast stuff. So what you're going to do is take your knife, and you are going to make lines. You're going to poke the knife in at even intervals, and you're going to go about, so you're doing it at an angle. Typically the Pano concept art is done with these sort of crosshatches pointing downward, so we're going to follow that direction as well. You're going to go about 2/3 of the way across the open area. And to be clear, you're only doing the front part of it. You can clean up the sides later. You just want to do the face here. So I'm going to go down this big one. So I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way across, and you're just doing a bit of a poke. You're not going all the way across. Again, this would be a lot easier if I could hold it next to my face. I apologize if this is not correct. You'll notice it is going to the part adjacent to the next tube over. That's fine, because when you actually press in the lines on that next tube over, it'll essentially overwrite anything you do. So I am right-handed, so I always want to do this detail coming in from the right side. So rather than trying to like pass my right hand over to this side to do the other side, I'm going to actually just rotate the model. So now I hold it like this, trying to get the camera to focus. And then I'm going to go, and now I'm going to match for each one of those lines I made. I am going to do a poke, and actually I'm bumping into the shoulder right now, which is making this a little more complicated. But I'll demonstrate this with a pencil in a second, just to. We're going to go in like this. And you're matching every line you made the first time with a line in the other direction. So you can see that you get kind of like a weave of one side into the other side, and that's basically how you do the like correct Pano stuff. And then you can go in afterward with a knife, and you just go on the sides, and anywhere that these lines go in, you just poke, 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 and you extend the line down into the crevice. And being careful to make sure that it all lines up properly, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's basically all you have to do. It takes some practice. Definitely try it out on some spare scraps of putty before you go onto a real model. Okay, so that's how to do the nice version. Doing the like shortcut version where it's just lines, basically you're going to make 3 pokes for every tube. So the first poke is you're going to go down the front. We're just going to do this, and we're only touching the front. You're making sure that they're evenly spaced. Okay, and then that's going to kind of flatten the tube out a bit. And then you're going to go in on the side and match everywhere you put one on the front. You're going to put a poke in on the side. And essentially you're just using this to continue the cuts that you started down onto the side. And then finally, you come in from the other side, and you go. At this point, I can't even see because like my head's too far away. I'm just guessing how to space them. And then so when you want to do just the fast tubing, then you just do it that way. You poke down the front, evenly spaced, poke, 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 poke. Turn it to the left, poke, 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 trying as well as you can to perfectly match the spacing and the location of the ones you put down the front. And then you turn it the other way and do them down the other side. And that's how you will end up with just basic banded tubing. And again, On the vast majority of models and on the vast majority of areas of the model, you can easily get away with this. It's a lot faster, but technically, if you're trying to be like accurate, the woven kind is technically what the real models have. Okay, so a couple of notes about this. So first of all, there's an extra piece that's technically on all Panocyanine muscle fibers. So the main body of it has the woven texture on it, but at the end there's like a cap, and you can think of that like the tendon that holds the muscle onto the hard part. I would say that if you're sculpting this by hand, these caps at the end are very optional. You don't have to do these. Almost no one will ever notice these. But, I mean, that's entirely up to you if you want to spend the time anyway. Next note is that when we're looking at other factions, Hakaslam tubing is divided up on the muscle in exactly the same way. They just don't put any detailing into the face. They're just smooth tubes. So if you're doing muscle tubes on hack models, then your life is way easier. If you look at Yujing heavy infantry, you'll notice they don't even have any of this. At least I looked up about half a dozen heavy infantry dossiers. They don't have a soft tubing for the muscles. They actually just have like more overlapping plates. Now they have a slightly different style of overlapping plates. They still kind of follow muscle directions, but really it's just more plates. And you can go ahead and take a look at dossiers for things like the Zuyong Invincibles and things like that if you want to see how those plates are done, if that's the kind of model that you're trying to replicate. I was actually kind of surprised about that. I've painted some Yujing models and I didn't really notice that they didn't have tubing. The last one, and probably the only other one that would require some demonstration and some explanation, is going to be, so Nomad models, instead of having muscle tubes, have a hexagonal pattern spread over the arm. This is harder to do. I'm just going to say that flat. You are going to hate this. If you are doing a Nomad model, I will show you how to do this. The demonstration I'm going to show you is going to be really bad because this is another type of detail that I would have to put my face next to the model in order to really do it properly. So I will make an attempt at it. But just because I know in advance that the demonstration on the model is going to be so bad, I'm just going to show you quickly how to do it with a pencil. Okay, you are going to do this. You're going to do a line of parallel lines that go down the arm. And I will fast forward this part. The lines are a little bit narrower than the distance between them. It's going to be, in reality, when you're doing this with a knife, you're going to find that they're all different widths, but you're trying for a width that's a little bit smaller than the distance between. Then, a little bit over from these, you're going to do another line of the exact same lines just in between where you did the first ones. Okay, and then once you have all the horizontal lines, you're going to connect them together into hexagons. Here's one where I took my time and did it kind of properly. Here's one where I rushed through really fast, but you can still see the basic idea. You do columns of parallel lines that kind of go down the arm, and you connect the two columns together. Realistically, yours is going to look a lot more like this area here than it is going to look like this area here. Trying to sculpt the nice hexagons in with a knife is going to be really difficult. Like I said, you are going to hate this. So I will try to demonstrate this on a model. The fact that I can't hold it next to my head, it means that this is pretty doomed from the start, but we will try. Okay. And that's basically it. Pen Oceania either has the difficult crosshatch version of the fiber textures, or has the easy ribbed version, which is, I mean, honestly looks just fine as well. Nomads have a more complicated pattern that, again, you are going to hate doing. Also, just keep in mind that for all of these, I would go back in and clean it. Like, you'll want to make sure to tighten up all the edges on these. You want to flatten out, because when you go in and put those lines in, it's going to bubble all of these out and they're going to bulge up. You want to go in with a soft tool if you have one and just press them a little bit flatter and spend probably like hours cleaning up all of the edges on these so that they're nice and perfect and that they rise properly. But that's just clean up, and that's the kind of thing that you only get better at that part with practice. But this is the part that's like kind of a trick, is how to put the hexagon pattern in. So again, it's parallel lines, another column of parallel lines, and then you connect the two columns together. And yeah, go out into the world and sculpt some heavy infantry detailing, I guess. I don't know. I'm not your boss. Can't make you do anything.